please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Big story we are tracking this evening. The government has swung into action after ATMs run dry in at least 5 key states. The Finance Ministry has issued now a statement, and the Economic Affairs Secretary has asked people not to panic or hoard cash, while allaying concerns of a shortage of currency. However, the centre has also now admitted that it is seeing unusual spurt in currency demand, at least in the last 3 months. The government has also conceded that this unusual spurt in currency demand is being seen in parts of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh and Bihar. So those are the 5 states as of now we are being told that's been impacted. And in an effort to calm frayed nerves, the centre has assured that it holds adequate reserves of currency notes. Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank has also issued a statement. In a statement that was issued just a short while back, they've said that they were monitoring the situation closely. The Reserve Bank has also said that they have sufficient cash in their vaults and currency chests, and that recalibration of ATMs was still a process that was underway. So what led to this unusual spurt in currency demand that the government seems to be suggesting? We will discuss that and more, but firsthand, here's a snapshot of what's happening across the country and how the government is responding to the situation. Have a look.
प्रॉब्लम्स बहुत है क्योंकि एटीएम्स में पैसे नहीं मिल रहे, ज़्यादा एटीएम्स कल तो बहुत घुमाम है, कहीं भी पैसे नहीं है।
पर्याप्त कैश है, उपलब्ध कराया जा रहा है, थोड़ी डिमांड अननेसेसरी जो जनरेट हो रही है वो कम हो जाए तो बेहतर है।
कैश की कमी नहीं है, कैश तो आज भी हम 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपए के उसमें हैं।
ये बैंकिंग व्यवस्था की ही गड़बड़ है।
So currency with the public and the banks, it has gone up and there has been adequate supply of cash from Reserve Bank of India.
बहुत से लोग रंजिश करते सर कि शटर बंद कर दो, ताला लगा दो, क्यों बैठे हो यहाँ पर? तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं सर, हमारा तो ड्यूटी है सर यहाँ पर।
All right, let's dig one level deeper into that. Ritu Singh now is standing by to explain how the government and the Reserve Bank is actually planning to tackle this cash crunch situation. To start with, Ritu, what's interesting is that the government on one hand is saying that there is no cash crunch. They say that there is adequate reserves. But at the same time, they're also talking about ramping up printing, especially of the 500 rupee note. So there clearly seems to be some kind of contradiction emerging.
Well, you know, there are both demand and supply side issues actually, and what the government is trying to do is address the supply side concerns by matching this spurt in demand for cash with more supply for cash. So what the government today has said is that it will ramp up the production of 500 rupee notes, which are said to be shorter in circulation than, say, the lower denomination notes. What it has proposed is, you know, from currently what it is printing is about 500 crore worth of 500 rupee notes on a daily basis. That it promises to multiply by 5 times and produce almost 2,500 crore worth of 500 rupee notes on a daily basis, which is about 75,000 crore rupees worth on a monthly basis. On the 2,000 crore rupee notes, what the government said is there is currently about 6.7 lakh crore rupees of 2,000 crore rupee notes in the system, and therefore there is no need, according to the government, to increase the supply of 2,000 rupee notes. That stays as is. There is no increase in the production of 2,000 crore rupee notes. Also, remember, the government did mention that the average demand for cash on a normal daily basis is about 20,000 rupees actually per month. That has now jumped up to about 45,000 crore rupees per month, and that is why you know, the government really wants to step up the supply of cash. It also said that as far as the reserves are concerned, you know, if the demand for cash rises further from here, there is enough supply with the government to ensure that demand is met, about 1.75 lakh crore rupees. It also hinted, you know, there is a tendency of hoarding the 2,000 rupee, which is the highest denomination rupee note with the public. What it has noticed is that fewer 2,000 rupee notes are coming back in circulation. So that is something that it warned against. But other than that, it says it's fully prepared to meet any rise in demand.
All right, Ritu, many thanks for getting us that update. We also reached out to the CEO of Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, and Sanjeev Sanyal, the Principal Economic Affairs Advisor. Amitabh Kant attributed the shortage of cash to the rise in agricultural activity, whereas Sanjeev Sanyal admitted that the spurt in cash in demand is rather unusual, but he stopped short of blaming it on seasonality. Take a look.
My personal view is that it's a demand related to the agricultural sector, and this is a demand relating to the agriculture production season. And therefore, if there's a demand required for agriculture production productivity that liquidity needs to be provided to give a huge impetus to agricultural production. And if it's a requirement by the from rural areas coming in, we need to ensure that this demand is fully met in terms of what the DA Secretary has already said in terms of making 500 notes available in all rural areas as well.
Certainly in very recent days that there has been a big spike, and it is certainly very unusual. The usual explanations, seasonality, festival season and so on, would not normally explain this spike. This is not a case that we do not have the cash. In fact, we have more than adequate cash in reserve, and more will be printed if necessary. So just bear with us while we supply this cash to the areas necessary, and in the next few days this problem should ease off.
Well, the government there maintaining that there's been a sudden spike in demand, but why has supply failed to keep up with the demand? So what has caused the sudden shortage? Lata Venkatesh standing by with an explainer. So Lata, what are you picking up from your sources? On one hand, as I said, the government is saying there is no shortage whatsoever. On the other hand, they're talking about quadrupling printing.
Okay, well, there's no denying that there has been excessive withdrawal, which has been a secular rise. It's been rising, say, July was more than June, August more than July, and it's so on and so forth. And this February, March, April, it's been like 50,000 crore a month. So clearly there is a demand issue, but here's a supply issue as well. The Reserve Bank in February last year, 2017, placed an order for 33 billion notes to be printed in FY18, that is 2017-18. And then in June, it brought it down. I mean, it gives this order to the 4 printing presses, 2 of them which it owns and 2 of them government owns. It brought down that order to 20 billion notes, believing that once the economy is reflated with new notes, the demand for cash will fall. But that didn't happen. When it noticed an increase in the cash withdrawal pace, it restored the order to 33 billion to the presses. But what did the presses do by then? They found that when Reserve Bank reduced the order from 33 to 20, they allowed the ink contract to lapse. They allowed the security threads contracts to lapse, thinking that they will not need so much ink and so much security thread. Now, when the order was again boosted in December 2017, they found that they had run out of ink. And that is why they are not able to meet the increased demand. You know, the government processes require that you have to give tenders, and there is a due process before you replenish whether it is ink or paper or security threads, and therefore it just is taking time. So while there is a demand issue, no one denies that there has been higher withdrawal ahead of political election season, or simply because people want to evade taxes and restrict themselves to the black economy. There are demand reasons, but there is a supply reason as well.
Lata, many thanks for that great explainer that explains why there is a cash crunch and what the supply side constraints possibly could be. Meanwhile, in its newly released World Economic Outlook, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, has kept its growth forecast for the global economy unchanged at 3.9% for both 2018 and 2019. It has also left India's growth forecast unchanged at 7.4% for the financial year 2018-19 and 7.8% for the financial year 2019-20. The IMF believes that strong private consumption and the fading transitory effects of demonetization and GST will aid India's growth. Highlighting the key risks to global growth, the IMF has cited growing trade tensions and a shift towards protectionist policies as key factors to watch out for. And that's not all. The IMF says that tax reforms in the United States will also hurt global growth momentum starting 2020. Speaking with CNBC Sarah Eisen about the growing trade tensions, the IMF's chief economist Moritz Opsfeld says that it is hard for any country to win a trade war, and even if it does, it's still a lose-lose situation.
This is pretty much as good as it gets for now. Our longer-term numbers are a bit lower than this. But we're also emphasizing that there are things governments can do now to prolong this upswing and to make it more resilient.
And one of those things you warn against is tariffs and trade conflicts. And you say it's the most obvious risk to growth. So if we do see tariffs or further escalation in this tit-for-tat between the U.S. and China, what type of hit to growth are we talking about for the global economy?
Well, it really depends on how far things escalate from the types of measures that have been threatened so far. The direct hit to growth wouldn't be that great, although certain individuals and certain industries could suffer. The big risk would be if these sorts of actions spook asset markets, spook stock markets and other markets, and that could have a more serious effect on confidence and growth.
Who gets hurt more, the U.S. or China, if this were to develop into a trade war?
You know, again, I think trade wars are hard to win. You know, even if you win, you lose. And so I think both countries would do badly. Both depend on a robust, resilient world economy, and that's what's at risk here.
Well, time to dip into a break. Up next, the Company Law Tribunal has approved Vedanta's bid for electricity steel, making it the first of the 12 large stressed accounts to be resolved under the IBC code. We get you all the details on the other side. Welcome back. Let's get you all the market action from Dalal Street today. Markets ended in the green for the 9th consecutive day, a feat achieved for the first time since January 2015. The Nifty ended with a 20-point gain, just 2 points shy of the 10,550 mark. The Sensex gained 90 points. Broader markets underperformed, though. Both the mid-caps and banks closed almost flat with a positive bias. Well, from Dalal Street to Mint Street now, the Indian rupee extended its losses for the second straight day, hitting a fresh 7-month low. This after public sector banks bought dollars for a large government transaction. And add to that a change in the trader sentiments because of rising crude prices and a widening trade deficit. All these factors have not helped the home currency, which closed at 65.64 to the dollar. That's as far as the markets and the rupee went. But let's get tribunal has now approved the resolution plan submitted by Vedanta for the company. For more on that, Ritu Singh joins in with the details. So Ritu, in a sense, history is being created. First case resolved under the IBC. Take us through the details.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the first cases of the 12 large defaulters that was identified by RBI to now be resolved successfully under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. The NCLT court has given its final stamp of approval to the resolution plan for Electrosteel Steels that was presented by the Vedanta Group. Now, what is the offer exactly? Vedanta, in a statement, has said that it has made an offer of 5,320 crore rupees for Electrosteel Steels, and I'll break that up. About 1,805 crore rupees will be by way of Vedanta's wholly owned subsidiary subscribing for the share capital of Electrosteel Steels. Another 3,515 crore rupees will be by way of debt also that Vedanta will take. So approximately after this transfer happens, the company will hold about 90% of the paid up share capital of Electrosteel Steels, and 10% of Electrosteel's share capital will remain with the existing shareholders and the financial creditors, who will also get some equity stake in the company. So that is the sum and substance of the proposal that has been offered. It translates to roughly around 55% or so haircut that the banks will have to take. But it's a good news nonetheless for all the banks involved. Vedanta, remember, had pipped Tata Steel, it had pipped Renaissance Steel, Edelweiss ARC to become the top bidder. Now this is just one case down. There are 11 more to go though.
Absolutely, Ritu. Let's hope they also see a speedy resolution. Thanks for that. The latest that's coming in from the GST, a group of ministers headed by Bihar Finance Minister Sushil Modi met different stakeholders today to devise a simple single-stage return filing process under the new tax regime. Speaking with the media later on, Sushil Modi said that they had discussed the issue with around 40 key stakeholders. He said GST Council will take up the issue and will take the issue forward. He, however, confirmed that 2 return filing forms, which is GSTR1 and GSTR3B, will continue beyond June of this year. Take a look.
मित्रों, उसी के साथ साथ तो जहाँ तक सिंप्लीफिकेशन ऑफ रिटर्न्स हैं उस पर आज भी काफ़ी दिन भर चर्चा हुई है, और जो स्टेक होल्डर्स हैं उनको ये कहा गया है कि वो 7 डेज़ के अंदर अपना जो ओपिनियन है, अपनी व्यूज़ हैं, उसे जीएसटी काउंसिल को अवगत कराएंगे। जो 3B है, जैसे काइंड ऑफ समरी रिटर्न जो पिछले 8 महीने से लोग फाइल कर रहे हैं, ये कंटिन्यू करेगा 3B।
On to court action now as the Aadhaar hearing continues. The Apex Court today sounded alarm bells on the potential impact of data leaks on the electoral process. In a thinly veiled reference to the Cambridge Analytica saga, the Chief Justice of India observed that democratic processes could be put to real risk if compromised data was used to swing the electoral process. UIDAI counsel, however, cautioned against drawing parallels with Cambridge Analytica leaks. UIDAI counsel sought to assure the Apex Court that the algorithm in use was vastly different, in fact, from the ones used by tech giants like Facebook, and that the law strictly prohibited UIDAI from carrying out any such analysis. Well, on to an exclusive interview of the day now. We see a huge opportunity in the Indian nuclear power sector. That's the word coming in from the US Energy Secretary Rick Perry. In a conversation with Rituparna Bhuyan, he pitched for Westinghouse reactors deal and adds that they are looking at contractors to build nuclear reactors in the country. Have a look.
I think one of the great opportunities for India is in the civil nuclear power. And that's obviously, Minister Basu and I were talking about the opportunities there. Westinghouse, which is the premier reactor company in the world. Nobody builds better reactors than Westinghouse, the AP1000. So having, again, a broad portfolio. Don't put your eggs all in one basket.
Yes.
Renewables will play a role. The LNG will play, I think, even a bigger role. Nuclear has the potential of being very important from a base load standpoint. All of those three that I just mentioned have substantial potential to clean up the environment.
Good that you mentioned about Westinghouse, because we have been trying to negotiate these power plants with Westinghouse for quite some time. There were some problems with the company itself. Now we understand that the talks have started again. So there were issues, again, related to liability as well. So are those issues mostly sorted now when it comes to Westinghouse?
Being able to clearly send the message that the regulatory climate is going to be predictable, it's going to be stable, that the protections are there, the liability and those types of things where a business feels comfortable, they can come here, do the things that they need to do. That is, I'm going to tell you, probably the most important message that you send to people who want to risk their capital, in this case in your country, in my case when I was the governor to the state of Texas, was stability and predictability in the regulatory climate. So Westinghouse had their challenges. They absorbed or they took in a company that was in the construction business. That wasn't what they did. They build reactors, and they build the best reactors in the world. They went through bankruptcy. That's being taken care of. It's very much basically done. And Westinghouse is ready to get back to doing what they do best, and that is build reactors. They'll find a contractor here.
That's the U.S. Energy Secretary in conversation with CNBC TV18. With that, we're going to wrap up this edition of What's Hot. Many thanks for watching, but please don't go anywhere, because when we return, we shift our focus to Dalal Street, where, as I told you earlier, markets ended in green for the 9th consecutive day, a feat achieved for the first time since January 2015. The Nifty ended with a 20-point gain, just 2 points shy of the 10,550 mark. The Sensex gained 90 points. Markets today talk back, takes the action forward when we return.